My name is Hank. I'm 59 years old. If you looked at my hands, you'd know my life story. They are calloused, permanently stained with grease and oil, with a scar running down my left thumb from a slip with a wrench back in '98. I own a small fleet of excavation trucks, Hank's Heavy Hauling. I built this business from one rusted dump truck I bought at an auction 30 years ago. For the last 5 years, my wife Brenda and I have had a plan. The exit strategy. I would sell the business, sell the equipment, sell the big house in the suburbs that felt too empty since the kids moved out, and we would move to a smaller place near Lake Erie. Just a porch, a fishing boat, and peace. Brenda was the one who pushed for it. "You're tired, Hank," she'd say, rubbing my back after a 12-hour shift. "You deserve to rest. Let's cash out while the market is high." I loved that woman. We met in high school. She was the cheerleader. I was the guy under the bleachers smoking cigarettes. I never understood why she picked me, but I spent 40 years trying to be worthy of it. She handled the house, the social calendar, and the books. I handled the dirt and the diesel. The betrayal didn't start with a bang. It started with a brochure. 2 months ago, we were finally closing the deal to sell my company. A larger construction firm offered me $1.8 million for the client list and the machinery. It wasn't screw you money, but for a guy like me, it was a fortune. It was our entire retirement. Our financial advisor was a guy named Gary. Gary was slick. He drove a BMW, wore loafers without socks, and had teeth that were too white. He was a member of the same Rotary Club as me. Brenda trusted him implicitly. "Gary says we should put the lump sum into a high-yield annuity," she told me over dinner. "Gary says the tax implications are better if we do it this way." Gary, Gary, Gary. I didn't like Gary. He had soft hands. But I trusted Brenda. It was a Tuesday. I came home early because a hydraulic line burst on my loader, and I was soaked in fluid. I needed a shower. Brenda wasn't home. Her car, a silver Lexus RX, I bought her for our 35th anniversary, was in the driveway, but she wasn't inside. I walked into the kitchen. Her phone was on the counter. It was buzzing. A text message popped up on the lock screen. It wasn't a name. It was just G. The message read, "Did you get him to sign the power of attorney yet? We need that before the wire transfer on Friday." I froze. My hands were dirty, so I didn't touch the phone. I just stared at it. Power of attorney? Why would they need a power of attorney? I was selling the business myself. I was capable. I wasn't senile. Then another message. "I found a perfect condo in Scottsdale, 2 bedrooms. Far enough from the kids that they won't visit unannounced. I can't wait to be done with this charade." My heart stopped. It didn't break. It just stopped beating. Scottsdale? We were moving to Lake Erie. We hated the heat. And then the realization hit me like a sledgehammer. G wasn't a girlfriend. G was Gary. And charade, that was my marriage. I didn't confront her. Not yet. That's the thing about working with heavy machinery. You learn patience. If you rush a dig, you hit a gas line and blow everything up. You have to probe the ground first. I went upstairs, took a shower, and scrubbed the hydraulic fluid off my skin. I watched the dirty water swirl down the drain, feeling like 40 years of my life were going with it. When Brenda came home, she had been at the gym. I was sitting in the recliner, watching baseball. "Hey, honey," she said, pecking me on the cheek. She smelled of expensive perfume, not sweat. "Did you have a good day?" Long, I grunted. Standard day. That night, while she slept, I did something I had never done. I went down to the basement, to the old filing cabinet where she kept the boring paperwork. Brenda always told me, "Hank, don't worry about the accounts. You just earn the money. I'll manage it." I started digging. I found credit card statements from accounts I didn't know existed. Neiman Marcus, 5-star hotels in the city, booked on Tuesdays, jewelers. And then I found the retirement accounts, our IRA, the one that was supposed to have $400,000 in it. The balance was $42,000. I felt like I was going to throw up. She had been draining it for years. Where did the money go? I looked at the transfers, consulting fees, GW Financial, Gary. They weren't just having an affair, they were embezzling my life. They had drained the savings and now they were waiting for the big fish, the $1.8 million from the sale of my business. The plan was obvious. Get me to sign the power of attorney, have the money wired to an account Gary controlled, and then disappear or divorce me and leave me with the empty shell of a bank account. I sat there in the cold basement, surrounded by my fishing trophies and old tools, and I cried. I cried for the boy who met a girl under the bleachers. I cried for the years I spent freezing in construction sites while she was managing our future. But by 4 a.m., the tears stopped and the anger arrived. It was a cold, quiet anger. The kind of anger that fuels a man to work a double shift. I took photos of every document. I put everything back exactly as I found it. I went upstairs and made coffee. When Brenda came down, I poured her a cup. "Brenda," I said, "I've been thinking about the sale on Friday." Her eyes lit up. "Yes? I think Gary is right. We should sign that power of attorney. I don't want to deal with the banks. I just want to go fishing." She smiled. It was the smile of a predator looking at a wounded deer. "Oh, Hank, that's such a relief. I'll have Gary bring the papers over tonight." "Good," I said. "Let's get it done." I wasn't the deer. I was the hunter setting a bear trap. I didn't go to work that day. Instead, I went to see my old friend, Sal. Sal wasn't a corporate lawyer. He was a divorce attorney who worked out of a strip mall next to a laundromat. He looked like a bulldog and smelled like cigars. He had handled 3 divorces for my brother. I laid the photos on his desk. "Sal, tell me how screwed I am." Sal looked at the retirement balance. He whistled. "Hank, if you divorce her now, in a no-fault state, she gets half of whatever is left. And since she spent the rest, you're basically splitting debt. But if we can prove dissipation of assets on an affair, we can claw some back. The problem is the business sale. If that $1.8 million hits your joint account on Friday, she can legally take half immediately. Or if you sign that power of attorney, Gary takes it all." "I'm not signing it," I said, "but I told her I would." "Why?" "Because I need 3 days. I need to move the finish line." Here was the plan. The buyer of my business was a decent guy named Mike. I called Mike. "Mike, the deal is still on, but I need a favor, a big one. If you do this, I'll throw in the 2 extra excavators I was planning to keep." Mike listened. "Hank, that's unorthodox. But if your lawyer drafts it, I'll sign it." Wednesday night, Gary came over for dinner. He sat at my table, ate my steak, drank my wine. He put his hand on Brenda's shoulder a little too comfortably. "Hank," he said, sliding a thick document toward me, "this is standard stuff. It just allows me to allocate the funds immediately into the tax-shielded bond status. You won't have to lift a finger. I put on my reading glasses. I pretended to read it. Looks complicated, Gary. That's why you have me, he smirked. I picked up a pen. Brenda held her breath. I signed it. There, I said. You handle it. Brenda let out a breath she'd been holding for a month. She poured more wine. They were celebrating right in front of me. What they didn't know was that I had spent the afternoon at the notary with Sal. I had signed a document revoking any and all powers of attorney effective immediately upon the release of funds. But more importantly, I had changed the destination of the wire transfer. The $1.8 million wasn't going to the joint account. It wasn't going to Gary's fund. It was going to a corporate account for a new LLC I formed that morning, Hank's New Beginning LLC. And since the business was in my name only, Brenda never wanted to be liable for lawsuits if a truck hit someone. So she refused to be on the LLC paperwork 20 years ago. The proceeds were technically mine to direct, at least initially. But I needed to catch them red-handed. I needed them to think they had the money so they would make a mistake. Friday, 9 a.m. I was sitting in the cab of my truck, parked down the street from our house. I had a tracker on Brenda's car, Sal's idea. The notification came from the bank. Wire transfer received. $1,800,000. The money was safe in my new blocked account. But Brenda and Gary didn't know that yet. They were expecting it in the joint account. I watched Gary's BMW pull into my driveway. 10 minutes later, Brenda and Gary came out. They were laughing. They had suitcases. Suitcases. They weren't waiting for the divorce. They were running. They thought they had drained the accounts and now had access to the big payout. They were going to clear the joint account and fly to Scottsdale. I started the engine of my Ford F-350. It rumbled like a beast. I pulled up right behind Gary's BMW, blocking him in. They froze. I got out. I was wearing my dirty work clothes. I held a wrench in my hand, not to hit them, but because it felt comfortable. It grounded me. Going somewhere? I asked. Brenda turned pale. Hank, Gary was just helping me take some old clothes to Goodwill. With Louis Vuitton luggage? I asked. And Gary driving? Gary stepped forward. Hank, listen. Brenda and we need to talk. It's over. We're in love. We're leaving. He tried to sound confident, but his eyes were darting around. He was checking his phone. He was probably checking the bank balance. I know, I said. I've known since Tuesday. I read your texts. Charade, right? Brenda started to cry. Hank, I'm sorry, but I'm unhappy. I've been unhappy for years. You're always dirty and tired and boring. Gary makes me feel alive. Does he? I asked. Or does my money make you feel alive? Gary looked at his phone again. He started tapping furiously. Something wrong, Gary? I asked. Where is it? He muttered. The transfer confirmed. Where is the money? It's not in the joint account, Gary, I said, leaning against my truck. And that power of attorney? I revoked it yesterday. The bank has the revocation on file. The money is in a trust you can't touch. The color drained from Gary's face. He wasn't just losing a payday. He was looking at a massive problem. He had probably promised Brenda this money to pay off debts he had. Brenda, Gary said, his voice cracking, did you sign anything else? No, she screamed. Hank, give us the money. Half of that is mine. Technically, I said, pulling a paper from my pocket. The divorce filing Sal had drafted. You're right. Half of the marital assets are yours. But here's the kicker. Sal did the math. You spent $380,000 of our retirement savings on Gary over the last 4 years. That's dissipation of assets. The court deducts that from your share. I took a step closer. Also, since you forged my signature on the second mortgage, yeah, I found that too, that's fraud. I'm willing to not press charges if you sign the settlement agreement today. You get the Lexus, you get your clothes, and you get Gary. Brenda looked at Gary. She expected him to fight for her. Gary looked at Brenda. Then, he looked at his BMW, blocked by my massive truck. Hank, Gary said, look, this is a misunderstanding. I was just advising her. You're sleeping with her, Gary? I roared. Don't insult my intelligence. Gary looked at Brenda with disgust. Without the money, she wasn't a ticket to Scottsdale. She was just a 56-year-old woman with no job and a husband who caught them. I can't deal with this, Gary muttered. I have a reputation. He got in his car and honked at me to move. Brenda stood there on the driveway. The love of her life was trying to flee the scene, leaving her standing with her suitcases. I moved my truck. Gary sped off without even looking at her. Brenda stood there, shivering. Hank, she whispered. Get in the house, I said. Pack the rest of your things. You're going to your sister's. The divorce took a year. It was ugly. She tried to fight for more, but the evidence of embezzlement was too strong. She ended up with very little, just enough to rent a small apartment. She works as a receptionist now. She hates it. Gary lost his license. I reported him to the regulatory board for unethical conduct, sleeping with a client and facilitating asset theft. He moved to Florida to sell used cars. And me? I didn't move to Lake Erie. I realized that dream was our dream, and it was tainted. Instead, I bought a cabin in the Smoky Mountains. Just me and a dog named Buster. I kept one excavator. Sometimes I helped the neighbors clear snow or dig a pond. For free. I'm alone, yes. But when I wake up in the morning, the air is clean. My hands are still dirty, but my conscience is clear. And for the first time in 40 years, I know exactly who I am. The end.